What's up, everyone? Dan here, Crypto Capital Venture, June 3rd, 2019. Want to do a little live stream here for everybody. If you're a replay viewer, thanks for coming by. Hit the timestamp comment in the comments below. I'll pin that comment so you can go right to the parts of the video you probably want to go to. Don't want to take too much of your time, and I'll try and make the video brief anyway. It's getting kind of late here on the East Coast, but I wanted to get out a video for everybody. I hope everybody's doing well. I hope everybody is doing well. Bitcoin and Litecoin taking a little bit of dip. Crypto markets in general taking a little bit of a dip. Just want to give you my perspective, I guess, right? Everybody has so many different perspectives. I'm just a dude out here on YouTube, on Twitter, in the crypto space, giving you my perspective. If you don't have your own approach to these markets, I just want to say this. If you haven't been on my channel before, please find your approach to these markets that make you comfortable. It's extremely important. You will be way more successful doing that than chasing little tidbits and little hints from YouTubers and people on Twitter. Take the data, but come up with your own approach. I promise you, you will be successful. You will do well, especially if you're long term in this space. So I want to jump right into it, and I'll pin this at 1:30 below. I want to talk about what's going on here. So I tweeted, let's see, I have a couple tweets to go over, and I'm doing it just because I tweet when the markets are moving and just when I'm watching stuff, and it's just good context for doing these videos. So this was 22 hours ago, Litecoin at $115. I said, watching the 4-hour, break out through the top of the symmetrical triangle, dip to the bottom of the triangle first. So notice how I'm looking at all possibilities. You have to. There's no way when you're looking at this chart to 100% for certain know what it's going to do. But if you look at this chart and you anticipate all scenarios, you make up your mind on what you're going to do in those scenarios. That's what I do. And so I was curious to see what happens down here at the bottom of this triangle, right? And we'll get to that in a little bit. Another tweet I wanted to go over is this. Where is it? Bitcoin. So while Bitcoin can continue trending up, there is a case for a pullback to the daily 50 moving average, something we've been watching out for, and that's on the daily chart, 50 moving average on the daily chart. It's a rising wedge. This pattern breaks 60% to the apex and down around 70% of the time. Have a plan for your Bitcoin accumulation either way. That's it. Here's the chart that I posted earlier. Bitcoin trading at $8,500 when I posted this. Look how quick things can change. $8,500 earlier when I posted this at 1:51 p.m. Like, this is probably right before we broke to the bottom of that rising wedge. So let's look at it. We talk about and actually, before we look at it, here's the weekly chart. I want to throw this out there. This is another good pinned timestamp at 3:30. Is this the RSI on the weekly chart we've talked a lot about? Look at these lines on this overbought area on the RSI. So I want to open it up real quick. It's just easier to see. We have this overbought green rectangle that we've talked about coming out of this bear market, right? We've asked a question, and just for context, here's December 2018. We've made some awesome gains since then, obviously, but we've had the question: are we going to enter this overbought area on the RSI, right, and see resistance there in that overbought area? Historically, it just always happens for Bitcoin, right? So this is going all the way back to the last bear market back here. Here's the last bear market. We're very zoomed out on the weekly chart, but just take into account this RSI in the middle of your screen, the momentum of Bitcoin, and look where we are, right? So even if we look at exiting the last bear market, right, and coming to a swing high before getting rejected for a little bit and seeing some consolidation in that last bear market, where were we on the RSI? We were right here. So let's open that back up, go to the RSI, and this is where we were back then when we got that rejection. Boom. Obviously, we have some rejection up here, closer to that 90 line. We have some rejection down here, 85, down here at 80. And where are we seeing most recent rejection? Right around 80. The average of these rejections is around 80. So it's really important to always look at us being overbought in Bitcoin, because 100% of the time since Bitcoin has started, it eventually pulls back, right? And those are the opportunities where we can really accumulate. And I annoy people when I talk about pullbacks and I talk about dips, especially when we're enjoying a ride up, right? As we've been. I know it's annoying that I bring it up to some people, but I'm sorry. I have to, because as much as I'm enjoying the ride up, I want to be prepared to accumulate when we come back down, right? So I'm always looking for the beginning signs of coming back down. That RSI, the momentum oscillator here, is one of those signs. You see us getting that resistance, that key resistance that we've seen so often in so many of these pullbacks, whether they're 20% pullbacks, 30% pullbacks, 40% pullbacks. We just saw resistance at one of those areas on the RSI. Take it into account. It's incredibly important. Let's go and check out the daily chart for Bitcoin. Daily chart for Bitcoin, here's this rising wedge. To me, it's not the most pretty rising wedge, but what it does is it illustrates what Bitcoin has been doing. Higher highs, right? Higher lows. And that just got broken. And you see it very clearly on the chart. This is the daily chart. We can zoom in a little bit on this. This is tough. It's there. I kind of ignore it because it's one of those crazy volatile hours in Bitcoin, but it's there. But in terms of charting this, I don't have it charted. I'm ignoring it. Just some people might heavily disagree with that, but that's just the way I do my charting when it comes to patterns like this. In general, we've had higher lows. You see it here. And we've had higher highs, right? The thing that just happened today is we created a lower low. And it's something incredibly important to take into account, especially as we've broken the bottom trend line here, right? So that doesn't mean, and I just recorded this entire video and it got screwed up. That's why I'm live right now. But I said this before in that video, which is it doesn't mean we can't retest around $8,400, $8,500, this bottom trend line, and continue bullish and all of a sudden be trading at $9,500, the upper trend line of this rising wedge. It happens. You know, when we're tracking patterns, we're always looking to retest trend lines, right? Sometimes it happens, we retest, sometimes it doesn't. Conservatively, if you've been watching my channel, you know I like to see if we retest before really having a solid idea of what I think is going to happen. For instance, if we broke the upper trend line here, before I'm incredibly bullish, and this probably annoys people too, I like to conservatively have a pullback to see if there's support at this upper trend line. It's a more conservative take on the markets, requires more patience, requires you to really just completely not get emotional in the markets and just sit back and see what happens. Many people will see a break to the upside and it's just like, boom, like we are 100% bullish. But me, I'm like, okay, that's nice, break to the upside. Let's see if there's support there at the upper trend line. I'm boring, I'm conservative, and that's just the way I am. And that's probably because I used to be the complete opposite 10 years ago. 100% complete opposite in terms of my investments, real estate, stocks, whatever. Way emotional, everybody. I used to be incredibly emotional, and I lost a ton of money. I didn't begin making money in life, in business as an entrepreneur, until I learned to put aside the emotionality of it all. Not just charts, not just stocks, right? Not just Bitcoin, but everything. The emotional aspect of life will get you in trouble. So a big part of that is patience. And I love Bitcoin, I love Litecoin, I love crypto because in the volatility of it all, when there's frenzy going on, it tests you to become patient. It tests you to grow thicker skin. It tests you to learn what true wisdom is. And so that's what I try and integrate into the charts when I'm charting. So I know I talk about downside a lot, but that's just because that's where I take action. I'm not doing much otherwise. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about taking action. We've broken through the bottom trend line. usually I talk about when I buy, when we're 20% plus down, right? So most likely you'll see me tweeting about me buying when we're at a 50 moving average down here at $6,500, $6,700. I just want to throw this out there to let everybody know this. That doesn't mean that I'm not buying if I'm not tweeting about it. I'm just very lightly buying. And it's just, if I'm feeling froggy, everybody, I'm going to leap. I'm going to go buy some Bitcoin and Litecoin. I've been doing that lately. I don't talk about it because it's not heavy. It's nothing crazy. And it's just because these prices, whether we're here or $6,000, there's not too big of a difference. So I just want to let everybody know that that's just completely my approach to the markets. And I 100% encourage you to have your own approach to buying too, something you're comfortable with, right? If you're feeling froggy and you're really comfortable with it, then take a leap. Go accumulate some Litecoin and Bitcoin. Liquid Canvas, $2.99 super chat. Just thankful for a dip. No emotion, Bitcoin LTC. It's exactly how I feel, dude. Thanks for coming by tonight, man. Thank you for the super chat for LAUNCHPAD Foundation. And I couldn't agree more. Just thankful. Always thankful for a dip. Like maybe 10% dip today. Lightly bought some Bitcoin, Litecoin. Nothing crazy. It's not my heavy accumulation area. I'll talk about my heavy accumulation area in a second here. If we go to Bitcoin on the daily chart or on the 4-hour chart, here's essentially what we just talked about, but a little bit more zoomed in, right? We have a pattern of higher lows broken, and it's very evident if you chart it on the Fibonacci retracement, right? Here's our first Fibonacci from this first swing low back here to swing high. We have nice support here above that 618 line, right? Setting up that lower trend line. Here's a higher low right here, right above that Fibonacci. And then we have, we have this next Fibonacci from that swing low to swing high. We have again the same thing, the continuation of this bottom trend line. It's beautiful. The setup of higher lows is just nice, right? It's always just nice. And we always use the 618 to 786 channel. We got that higher low. We're bouncing off of it. But here's what happened. We have broken that, right? We have this new lower low down here. It's kind of hanging out in the middle of nowhere. Obviously, the 4-hour candle, the way it's set up right now, it looks nice, right? We have some bulls stepped in, bought to get the candle up right now barely above $8,000. But we know that can change very quickly. We want to see how these candles in the 4-hour progress. That's what I'll be looking for. And as we just mentioned over on the daily chart, truly looking to see what happens right here, right? This $8,500 area. If Bitcoin manages to get a bounce off of here, maybe a new 4-hour candle here, what's going to happen as we test this lower trend line? It's a very important question to ask. For me, I don't know. I'm going to hang out and watch. I think that's what most of the world will do. There's no predicting, but it's having a plan with what's going to happen, right? So here's my approach to what has happened and transpired today. Right here is around 10% to the downside, right? We have almost 9% here charted. Nice area for me where I'm just like, I'll go into my app, I'll buy some Bitcoin and Litecoin. Full well knowing this could be the beginning of a large pullback. It's a light buy for me. It's to say, Dan, there's always possibility that we retest this lower trend line and continue up. There's always that possibility, right? And so I bought with what I'm comfortable with, but I'm taking into account the zoomed out charts. This is what's most important to me, right? So if we go to the daily chart, what's really in play to the downside? Where does kind of the heavier buy come into play? And here it is. We have, so from where Bitcoin is right now on the daily chart, around 15% to the downside. That is the $6,750, 16% to the downside to the 50 moving average on the daily. This truly is something that could be setting up right now. This could be the very beginning of it. It could happen quick. It could take a little bit, right? But this down here is a heavier buy zone for me. Up here is kind of I'm going to just accumulate because I accumulate Bitcoin and Litecoin anyway. Here is more dramatic, more impact in terms of what I'm accumulating. But it's definitely in the back of my mind. If you've been watching this channel for a while, you know that, because I'm always talking about the 50 moving average, bull market, bear markets, these pullbacks historically that we get on Bitcoin. No matter what market we're in, these pullbacks to this blue line, the 50 moving average, they happen. They happen dramatically, they happen quickly, and historically, everybody, these are the areas, whether you're in a bull market or bear market, that have proven to be awesome times to accumulate. So what does that mean for us? Well, if we're looking at the daily chart once again, I'll zoom in on the daily to really give you a clear picture. It's simple. The last couple of days to the downside, since yesterday, $8,700 to where we've gone down to today, around 11%. If we hit that 50 moving average down here, we're talking about 20% plus to the downside, $6,700. Things could get crazy. People could be panicking, and then we're even below that, maybe touching $6,000. Those are the times when I heavily accumulate. These are the times that I talk about, even when they're not happening, and I get comments of people calling me bearish, amongst other things. But those are the times that really pay off in the long run. And the thing is, we have data that proves that they consistently pay off in the long run. So take the emotionality out of it. Be prepared for a scenario like that. Doesn't mean we're not gonna bounce back up and continue an uptrend right now. It 100% could happen, right? But it just means the 50 moving average since the birth of Bitcoin has proven to be a magnet for Bitcoin. So that's a heavy accumulation area. I did a video the other day, Litecoin buy targets, and when was this? May 30th, Litecoin buy targets. So I'm not gonna play this video, but it really provides good context of what we were anticipating to the downside. Before I talk about those buy targets, I do want to look at a tweet from 22 hours ago. I don't know if I covered this at the beginning of this, but I said watching Litecoin on the 4 hour, this is like midnight last night. Breakout through top of symmetrical triangle, dip to bottom of triangle first. Will there be support? Waiting and watching. And here we go. I kind of had it like $106 or so to $110. Just looking on the 4 hour chart, is there going to be a higher low setup, right? And what's going to happen in that area? Well, interestingly enough, if you go over to, I don't have a 4 hour chart up. I should probably put one up. Hold on. Let me grab a 4 hour chart for Litecoin. And I actually have that. So let's bring up this 4 hour chart. So when I tweeted this, I guess where were we? Let me go see. We were $115 on the 4 hour. So I'm guessing, I have no idea on this chart where we were, but we were $115 and just looking to see what happened after this previous higher low. Well, you can see what happened. We actually, on this chart, what is this? This is Bitstamp. We wicked right down to 100. And the one thing that is good, similar to Bitcoin right now in the 4 hour, is just this candle setup, right? We could have a reversal in terms of a bounce off of this area, right? So I'd say it's close enough, especially if we get a 4 hour close above this previous wick all the way down here. It's close enough where we can kind of have a continuation, but considering what Bitcoin's doing, is very iffy. So things are really up in limbo right now, but it's something that I've been looking at and watching on the 4 hour chart. That's why I tweeted it last night. So what I think is interesting is how right now on this 4 hour chart, we're literally hugging this trend line. So I'm really curious to see what happens, not only in this 4 hour close, but in the next one. Are we going to kind of start seeing some momentum above here or below here? I think that's going to tell us a lot. Moving over to the daily chart on Litecoin, Fibonacci, another just huge tool that we just used on Bitcoin, says a lot in terms of what's happening for Litecoin. Litecoin just in general still has a more bullish looking chart in my opinion than Bitcoin, just because we have this crazy upward trend since December, right? I have this orange trend line coming since February, just these higher lows since February, and we still have that in play, right? On the daily chart, we can take our Fibonacci from our previous swing low close to that 50 moving average on the daily to swing high. And in terms of daily bullishness, what we have here is a wick on the daily right into this 618 to 786. So for me, that looks nice. And we have this buy zone that I talked about in this video from the end of May over here. And I'll put a link in the description in case anybody's interested, wants to check it out. But we have this one buy zone, right, that we talked about, which is this Fibonacci retracement, this $99 to $92 area. And we just wicked into it on this daily chart. This is Bitfinex daily chart. Like Bitfinex went down to around $98. So we kind of hit into that first light buy zone that I talked about at the end of May. That doesn't mean I bought $98 Litecoin today. I did not buy a $98 Litecoin today. I was out most of the day, so whatever I bought, I don't even know what the exact price was, but it was somewhere in this daily candle on this dip. So first buy zone, that is it, right? This area is it. That's why I started lightly buying today with this big dip. In terms of next buy zone, again, down to the 786 on the Fibonacci retracement. Long term, could be just another higher low setup for Litecoin. Very bullish indeed, right? And you can even take, we can zoom out here. If I can zoom out. One thing that is good, even if we get a pullback to $92, I know a lot of you don't like hearing that, but if we did, this is just the way I think, we'd be taking a breather in terms of RSI here. We're well out of overbought, which is good. But if we continue down, we're going to start approaching oversold, right? So on the daily, oversold. Stock RSI could continue down into the oversold. Awesome indicators for buying the dip and accumulating. This is one thing to be cautious of, which is the 50, or not the 50 moving average. The MACD line crossing below the signal line just happened today on the daily chart. Always have to be careful. You want to, especially on the daily chart, you have to give it a little bit of time to see what momentum does, what key areas are breaking to the downside. But right now, it's not something you really want to get in front of, I guess you could say, right? This momentum has a lot of downside potential, right? And we just looked at it on the other momentum oscillators, namely the RSI, the stock RSI. There's a ton of downward potential. So be careful for that. Now, in terms of what that looks like in terms of accumulation for me, I'll throw it out there. Light accumulation, right? 10% day. Come on. It's hard not to just go into Coinbase, Cash App, AB, or whatever you're using and just buy a little on a 10% dip, especially in a continued long-term uptrend. Very light for me. I don't know what you're doing. Light buy zone for me. Medium buy zone down to $92, and then obviously down to this 50 moving average, similar to Bitcoin, $88. Starts to get heavy for me, right? And we all know, I talk about that's in the $60 range for Litecoin. That's simply in context to the weekly chart. I'll open up the weekly chart right here, weekly chart, 50 moving average. There it is. I know a lot of you hate it. A lot of you probably unsubscribe to me. But there it is. Heavy buy zone. So if you really want to put it simply, if I were to really 786 is at $92. 50 moving average, $88. Okay? So this is the way my brain works. $88, 50 moving average on the daily chart. Now we're on the weekly. So here we have a rectangle of accumulation. And I did this before we even entered the bottom of the bear market, right? Especially on Bitcoin. I did it on Bitcoin, which was this. It's the same exact thing, just on a shorter time frame and not as dramatic. 5,500. I think it was 3,500 maybe. Heavy buy zone, right? We talked about in the bear market, heavy buy zone. We were buying the dips all through the bear market. We did a video almost every day in the bear market. But this was the heavy one. And it's simple. It was all based off of this long-term chart that we had on Bitcoin. We have our long-term 786 retracement right here. That's what this line is. Same thing happened in the last bear market. This was a huge area and an indicator for us that says if we're below the 786 line, this is a beautiful area to buy, all in there. And that's what we did. So if we take that same type of concept and we take it to what Litecoin is doing now, well, on the weekly chart, we're looking at this going into the halving for Litecoin. Where's my brush? Here's the halving, this white line right here that you see. And if we take into account what happened in that last bear market, coming out of that bear market into that halving, we had a huge swing high. And then we just had massive consolidation going to that 50 moving average. I'm taking that into account now. So here's our halving. Here's our 50 moving average. You have to take data, not to say it's going to happen again, but it very well could, especially as consistent as Bitcoin and Litecoin have been. So are we going to get a similar move of consolidation back down to the 50 moving average, $60 or in the 60s, like we did in that last bear market leading into the halving? It would just be an insane, harmonious flow of Litecoin. I'm very interested to see if it happens. But just so you know, that is a huge buy zone for me. Anything under the 50 moving average on the daily chart, which is here on the weekly, it's $88, down to the 50 moving average on the weekly, $60. Very simple approach. I don't think you can get much simpler, but it works. And historically, if this is something that you've been doing since the birth of Bitcoin and Litecoin, you'd probably be doing really well. And I don't really see that changing. I really truly believe these moving averages on the weekly, on the daily, paired up with our patterns and Fibonacci that we look at, are incredibly reliable, right? I haven't been doing this since the birth of Bitcoin and Litecoin, but I wish I was. So that's it. That's what I'm looking at on Litecoin and Bitcoin. So Bitcoin, one last time, if you weren't here at the beginning of the video, we're kind of just right now right around $8,000 still. That's what it was when we started the video. On my messy chart here, looking for the potential for a downtrend, right? Not even much more downtrend. 15% to the 50 moving average, $6,700 for Bitcoin. But if we go to the 4-hour chart, the question is, will we revisit this lower trend line here in this rising wedge for Bitcoin, and that lower trend line right around $8,400 up here? Just something to look out for. If we see resistance there, be careful. And in general, be careful, because we have these oscillators on the 4-hour, on the daily, just with some heavy downside, right? Heavy momentum to the downside. And you really get a sense of it if you open up those momentum oscillators. So all I can say is be careful out there. It's a volatile market, but nothing is surprising. We're getting a little bit of a dip. All is good, everybody. The markets are looking amazing. Consolidation, incredibly important, incredibly healthy. And I think a lot of you have been around for long enough that you're really starting to get the idea of that, right? So I think that's awesome. Wanted to say, I tweeted, and there's definitely a lot of support for it. But all you Litecoin people out there, if you're on Twitter, go retweet this if you haven't. I said retweet to get Litecoin listed on Cash App. It just makes sense. Besides Bitcoin, Litecoin is the most secure, reliable, and consistent crypto. It's meant to be. 621 retweets. I thought that was pretty sweet. 729 likes. Somebody commented, I don't even know where it was, but they're like, that's not how this works. Like, that's not how you get something on an app. And I just want to say, actually, that is actually how it works. We have, as the market itself, right? The users, we have an insane amount of opportunity now to make an impact on what happens, right? So this space, as small as it is, the builders, if you want to reach them, if you want to talk to them, they're there. I promise. And I'm not even just saying Twitter, like via email. You can get a hold of some people. And it's possible. And so if you want something like Cash App, which I've got a ton of comments, people saying, there's no way. Jack said he'll never, he's a Bitcoin maximalist. There's no way. Well, then maybe you've never been in business before. I don't know how else to say that. I'm a true believer that especially in business, especially in innovations, people change their mind, everybody. And if enough demand presents itself, Cash App will add Litecoin. They will, in my true opinion. Litecoin is here to stay, and it consistently proves itself over and over, and it is consistently adopted by leaders of the space, even people that were once naysayers of Litecoin, and it's gonna continue, I truly believe, to happen. So I think there will be a day when Cash App lets you buy Litecoin. Those are just my thoughts. Dude, Jack, he's just a dude that can change his mind, like all of us. So look, here's one. Won't change. Jack is a true believer. But then here we go. Jack, Cash App needs LTC. Look, I love LTC in his community, but it'll never happen. Jack has made it clear he only backs Bitcoin. This guy says, not happening. Number one, there's no need. Number two, Jack, not into alts. So I think that's a very limited view. Number one, doesn't even make sense. There's no need, because I was buying Bitcoin earlier today using Cash App, and I needed Cash App to offer me Litecoin so I could buy Litecoin, and it wasn't there. I needed it. So that means there's a need. And I see 621 people retweeting it. They needed it. 729 people in this small little space. There's a need. So I think my point is, if you're interested, I saw Liquid Canvas just retweeted. Thanks for the retweet. I think my point is this: if you're interested in making impact in this space, open fields, everybody, open playing fields. The door is wide open. It just takes action. So I've seen people that have taken action, are making moves, are making impact, and then I see some people that just talk trash. They don't want to make moves. They just want to be negative all the time. I don't recommend that one. But let's see. Maybe one day Cash App will be on there. So whoever's on Twitter, and if you retweeted that, thanks for the retweet. Liquid Canvas, $2 super chat. Thanks, dude. Says, is LTC really an alt still? It's the second coin ever. It really is hard for me to call Litecoin, I agree, an altcoin. Litecoin is an altcoin, right? I think the simple definition is anything that's not Bitcoin is an altcoin. So Litecoin's not Bitcoin, so it's an altcoin. So I get it in that context, but it's very difficult for me to call it that, because altcoin has kind of like a bad connotation to it, right? And hopefully it won't be that way forever, but it's hard to call it an altcoin. So what's going on in the markets? We'll see. Nothing as of right now. Time will tell. My time is up here on this live stream. It's Monday, 11 o'clock Eastern, 11:04 Eastern. You guys are awesome. Thank you for coming by tonight. Appreciate you. I saw a super chat. I think I missed one. I don't even know if I can find it. Naroku with a $1.99 super chat. I don't know if you're still here, Naroku, but thank you so much for the super chat. I appreciate it, and hopefully I didn't miss anybody else. But wanted to give you a shout out. Thank you everybody for coming. Appreciate you. If you're on Twitter, get on Twitter. If you're not on Twitter, get on Twitter. Get an account. There's some cool peeps over there, and we're always tracking Bitcoin, Litecoin, having some fun over there. I also post updates in terms of if the market's moving, let's see what happens. Hey, maybe we get a bounce off of here. Maybe we break these areas of resistance above. Time will tell. But hopefully things go well for all of you. Be safe out there in these crazy, crazy volatile markets. I'll try and do a video tomorrow, depending on what the markets are doing and how things are looking. Appreciate you coming by. If you're here right now and you're not a subscriber, please hit that subscribe button. I would love to have you as part of the channel, to grow with you, to learn from you. Appreciate all of you guys out there and gals. I hope you have a great rest of the night. I will see you in the next video, and God bless.